We all know that feeling, the feeling you've swallowed something awful, the overwhelming craving for salty, fatty food, the incessant thirst, the distant memories of what you did or didn't do the night before. Welcome to your hangover. Sometimes it seems to happen without much of a drinking effort, just a couple of bevies, and the next day you feel horrendous. Why? What is it about alcohol that makes us feel so terrible the day after? And what can we do about it? Up very soon, we'll chat to the founder of Hello Sunday Morning. You might be involved in this. You might be living this new improved life, hangover-free. So we'll find out about that movement. But my next guest has spent a lot of his time researching hangovers, David Nutt. He's a professor at the Imperial College of London. He joins me now from the UK. Professor, thanks for your time.
It's a pleasure.
Let's start with the simple question. What is a hangover?
Well, a hangover is an unpleasant experience which is caused by overindulgence in alcohol the night before, usually.
And what is happening to our bodies in that moment?
Well, a number of different things seem to take place. Obviously, there's pain. A lot of people have headache. A lot of people have nausea. A lot of people are very shaky. A lot of this is adaptive responses. The body doesn't like being drunk and tries to compensate by turning on neurotransmitters to compensate for the sedative effects of alcohol. There's also the toxic effects of alcohol, and it's metabolized a substance called acetaldehyde, which is also even more toxic. And more recently, people have started to discover there's quite a lot of inflammation going on as a result of that toxicity. So hangover, in part, may be an inflammatory response. And that's why anti-inflammatory drugs, like ibuprofen, can be helpful.
Yeah, because basically it's our body reacting to the booze, right, and trying to get it out of our system as fast as possible?
Yeah, it's partly that. It's partly the body's reaction, and it's partly just the toxicity of the booze itself.
There are so many conversations around what the best hangover cure is, the best way to deal with it. I guess it starts with not drinking to start with, but if you are in that situation, what do we know is best for our bodies?
There are almost as many hangover cures as there are people who have hangovers. I mean, hydration, drinking water before you go to bed so you don't dehydrate, that's got to raise some basis. Taking anti-inflammatories, ibuprofen, paracetamol, that may reduce inflammation. When I was a medical student, people were using beta blockers to stop the overactivity of the noradrenaline system to reduce pounding headache and the shakiness. But you're right, the only way really to have a hangover is to not drink enough to cause the body to adapt. And they're actually interesting. It's been shown that if you reduce the production of acetaldehyde, then you can also, to some extent, reduce hangovers, but we haven't got technology for doing that in humans yet. Do hangovers get worse with age, or is that just we just feel a bit older? I think we become weedier as we get older, and I think the body just less able to cope. But whether they get, and there's no systematic study of that, but it's a lot of people stop drinking when they get into their 30s and 40s because the hangovers really are just too disabling and too damaging to normal life the next day.
Yeah. For you as a researcher, why did you start really drilling into hangovers and what we know and what we might be able to change?
Most of my professional life, I've been studying alcohol, trying to find treatments for drinking, for craving, for withdrawal. And when you look at the economics of drinking, hangovers probably contribute a greater burden to the economy than the consequences such as cirrhosis and hypertension. And it's virtually unstudied. And it just seemed to me that would be quite a sensible thing to do, particularly as we were beginning to understand how we can study the brain better, and particularly, as I say, issues like brain inflammation. We now have quite sophisticated tools. We can look at inflammatory processes in the brain, certainly in animals, and we're beginning to develop them for humans. It would be an enormous benefit to society if we could, at the very least, understand and maybe mitigate hangover.
When you say that hangovers are a greater burden than, say, other health issues that we see with sustained use of alcohol. What are those burdens that we see?
Well, people don't go to work. I mean,
Yeah.
And people, if they go to work, they don't work very well. I mean, I'm not sure about Australia, but it's probably true there. But in Britain, we didn't have drinking hours in bars until the First World War, and they were brought in to reduce the time people were able to drink, because it was absolutely well known that when people got drunk, particularly on a Saturday night, they would be so drunk that they wouldn't come to work on a Monday. In fact, a lot of people had a 4-day week because of the enormous influence of the Monday hangover. So that's why we introduced regulated drinking hours and to try to reduce the consequences of drinking.
Yeah. Has it worked?
Well, it certainly worked in the First World War. I mean, and we've kept it ever since. But it's interesting. In Britain, they have eased up that drinking, those licensing hours in recent years, and we've allowed bars to stay open as late as they like. And whether it's actually reduced hangovers, I don't know, but it certainly just increased the amount of time that there's problems on the streets. And it used to be everything was condensed between about 11 and midnight. Now there's problems that roll on right into the early hours of the morning.
Why do you think it's important that we have more understanding of those effects of hangovers on our community, on our health, on every part of our society as we talk about the future of alcohol and our relationship with it?
I mean, the thing about alcohol is that most of us drink and most of us enjoy drinking, but some of us, sometimes ourselves but often other people, friends, and that, struggle to regulate how much they drink. I don't think anyone sets out planning to have a hangover. But alcohol, of its very nature, encourages moorishness, so that for many people, a couple of drinks leads them to losing control and wanting more and more. And there are two approaches to that. One is to try to work out ways you can stop that perhaps through medication. The other approach is to say, well, people will lose control. It's the nature of alcohol. It takes away your self-control. But maybe we can actually accelerate people's recovery by finding ways of reducing hangover. There is a theory that hangovers do deter people from drinking, but they may do, but they don't do it very effectively.
Well, we've all had that, I'm never drinking again, and then, next weekend or the weekend after, we seem to be back on the horse.
Indeed, we have. Although I'll tell you an interesting thing. I've been fascinated by the nature of hangovers. I used to run the alcohol research ward in the National Institutes of Health in America, NIH. For 2 years, I interviewed every alcoholic we admitted to that ward. And I was always asking the question, do you have hangovers? And almost none of them had hangovers. So I think there is some truth in the fact that bad hangovers are a deterrent.
Yeah.
And I think people who don't have them are at great risk of drinking more than others and becoming very alcoholic.
My guest is David Nutt. He's a professor at the Imperial College London. He's been doing a lot of research on hangovers, on the effect to our community, on alcohol. You've sort of looked at alternatives as well. Tell me about your drink. Is it alcohol?
Yeah, so as I said, I spent most of my professional life, and I've been in medicine for over 40 years now, trying to help people deal with the problems of alcohol. And actually, a long time ago, I found an antidote. When I was doing my PhD in Oxford back in the 70s, I discovered an antidote to alcohol. But I realized that actually keeping people sober wouldn't necessarily help them, because the alcohol would still be damaging their liver and their brain. And about 10 years ago, when the British government, I was part of a working group, brainstorming group, looking at the future of brain science and medicine. And we thought, well, maybe if we can't get rid of the toxicity of alcohol, which, in fact, we can't, maybe the alternative is to replace it with something that gives people similar kinds of positive experiences, but is much less harmful. And that's what I've been working on ever since. And it's called Alcarel, because Alcarel, it would be to alcohol what Canderel, aspartame, would be to sugar. You get the pleasure, but without the calories, or in the case of Alcarel, without the other harms of alcohol.
Yeah, right. So you get the buzz, but you don't get maybe some of that violence, maybe some of that antisocial behaviour, and you don't get the hangover.
Yeah, well, we're in. Yeah, I mean, obviously we're in the early stages of researching it, but we hope we can eliminate, and I think scientifically it's completely plausible. But we're hoping to get rid of, as you say, those things. We're hoping to find something which people can enjoy and drink socially without getting dependent, without getting aggressive, and hopefully with much less in the way of consequences like hangover.
How do you see this fitting with our current booze market? Because you're up against some big global businesses there.
Well, my hope is that they will realise this is the future and will then endorse it and encourage it. And we're not trying to stop people drinking alcohol. We're simply trying to give people a choice. At present, we don't have a choice.
Can you ever see a time as a society where alcohol isn't the centre of everything that we do?
Well, I can see a time when alcohol might be. Yes.
Yeah.
I think the point about alcohol, and this is why it's an interesting field to work in, because as you point out, most of us drink, most of us enjoy drinking, but certainly if we haven't personally suffered as a consequence of drinking, every family in the land has a member who has suffered from drinking. So, my hope would be we could actually make it so that it was easier to enjoy the pleasure of drinking and with much less risk, and that's what I'm trying to do.
Yeah. David, really interesting to hear about the work that you're doing. Thank you for speaking with us this morning.
It's been a real pleasure. Thank you very much.
That's Professor David Nutt. He's a researcher of hangovers with the Imperial College London. It's 24 minutes past 10 on ABC Newcastle and New South Wales. And back here in Australia, you might have heard of the Hello Sunday Morning movement. It's all about reclaiming your Sunday morning, no more hugging the porcelain, feeling sorry for yourself, finding the nearest hot chip location. Instead, you're clear-headed, you're ready to tackle the last day of the weekend. Chris Payne is the Hello Sunday Morning CEO. Hi, Chris.
Hello, good morning.
Listening to what David has to say, what do you take from the research that he's done into hangovers and the effect that we see on us personally, but also on society?
Yeah, so at Hello Sunday Morning, we support people, particularly people that are drinking at high-risk levels, to change their relationship with alcohol. So we have a membership on our program called Daybreak, which has over 36,000 Australians on there. And interestingly, in relation to Professor Nutt's views on the subject matter, we actually are measuring reductions in consumption, but also looking at improvements in the way people engage with work and hangover days and whatnot. And we've just completed a research study with the National Drug Research Institute over in Perth, looking at what the improvements in a person's working week. And we've published that trial, and we found that people that signed up to Daybreak showed an improvement from 3.5 days where they didn't have the ability to perform their normal duties. At 3 months later, that went down to 0.5 days.
Wow.
So there's major improvement as a result of people reducing their consumption, or at least thinking about how they might change their relationship with alcohol, a major improvement in their working week and their engagement in their lives.
It's really interesting because I don't think we link being hungover with not being able to do our jobs, or we don't necessarily think about the impact in that way, and we should. It does have that huge flow-on impact.
Exactly. And I think there's a lot going on there, and it's not the person's fault as well. I think a lot of our drinking cultures are built around Friday afternoon drinks and kind of releasing the stress of the working week. But there is a price that we do pay week in, week out when we have these consistent patterns with drinking. So it doesn't necessarily mean people need to be abstinent or need to quit completely, but definitely thinking about the impact that this might have on one's working environment or our social environment is really important.
What do you think of that idea of a synthetic alcohol that maybe gives you the buzz without the negative implications on our livers, on our behaviours, on our hangovers?
Yeah, I'm a technologist, so I think that work is really fascinating and could actually be very helpful. Personally, and also our organisation isn't against the drug itself in any way, but there are some serious side effects that happen as a result of using it consistently and over a long period of time. And if we can cancel out those side effects and get all the value that it provides in terms of bringing people together, I think that's a really positive way forward. But there's always, whenever you invent a new technology, it creates a whole new suite of problems. As you see with e-cigarettes, there's sort of research that needs to be done into how it improves and how it has a negative impact on our lives.
What do you hear from people who sign up to take your challenge and start thinking about more deeply and changing their relationship with alcohol?
Well, it's incredibly hard. Alcohol is definitely ingrained in most of our social relationships, and be that our family, our work relationships, and especially in our friendships. And so making changes in that particular way is really difficult. So a lot of our members often come to us specifically to get the social support that they need, the peer-to-peer support they need to actually make that change in their life. Without it, it's very difficult to do that. But once you get through that first couple of weeks, that's often really difficult. You can actually set you on a path of making some long-term changes in your life. And
do we know if people they're sticking to it? It is that lifetime change at this stage?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's a lifelong relationship with alcohol, and people come in and out. And our recent research just looked at changes from a month when they first start to 3 months in, and we found an average reduction in consumption from 37 standard drinks to 17. So, and that's an average. So different people would be drinking at different levels, but it's a long-term change, and many of those people go back to drinking at higher risk levels and then reduce as well. Just like with any dependence on any drug, you're going to get this long behaviour change tail. But as long as we're there supporting people when they need help, which currently it's really difficult in our system, our treatment providers are under-resourced to cater to the demand that they have. And so our system is really serving an adjunct support mechanism for people that are not only motivated to help, but they motivated to change, but they need support to do that, and that's our role in the broader system.
We're coming into the festive season, the start of Christmas parties, the start of where alcohol really does become the centre of a lot of what we do. What are your tips as we head into this period of the year if maybe you don't want to drink as much at some of these events?
Yes. So we'll certainly, download Daybreak. You can access it for free thanks to the federal government and Department of Health. So you can sign up and get support. You can get a peer support, and you also can talk to a drug and alcohol counsellor if you need a little bit extra help. Even if you're thinking about cutting back just a little bit, it's certainly worth just checking in. There's no cost involved in doing that at the moment, so it's really there for you. And then in terms of if you're outside that, I think it's always worth experimenting. Pick a time when you're more likely to drink and experiment with not drinking just once and see what it's like. And if you're feeling anxious, then that's something to work on to actually perhaps get some extra support around that, and something about our own psychology to make improvements on. But this, you can always go back to drinking. There's no rules with this, so it's really about your own personal development and what kind of life you're interested in leading.
Yeah, taking that step back and being like, all right, what is it that makes me make those decisions in that moment?
Definitely.
Chris, great to catch up with you. Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
That's Chris Payne. He's the CEO of Hello Sunday Morning.